Last night, the White House's Office of Management and Budget issued a memo ordering a temporary halt to all federal financial assistance, potentially paralyzing a vast swath of federal programs. This has had a unsurprisingly apoplectic reply from the Democrats. A whole lot of things have happened in response. So DOGE started looking into some of the funding that had been going on, and they found that there was $50 million in condoms for Gaza. So we'll talk about that. And then, of course, because this has happened and Donald Trump has done it, there's already a federal judge that has blocked Trump's spending freeze. So we'll talk about that. The Trump administration offers the roughly 2 million federal workers a buyout to resign. So the effort to shrink the size and scope of the federal government is a real tangible thing. So we'll discuss that. The White House has issued the Protecting Children from Chemical and Surgical Mutilation Executive Order, which everyone that's a viewer of Timcast, I'm sure, is familiar with these kind of topics. We'll get into that. The White House has given an update on the mysterious New Jersey drones. A lot of stuff coming out of the White House. You know, today was, I think, the first White House press briefing. Yes. And considering how the Trump administration is pledged to be the most transparent administration possibly in history, I expect this is going to be the norm. And then if we can get to it at the end of the show, we're going to talk about California could become its own independent country. Actually, I think that was decided during the Civil War. I don't know that could become its own independent country is actually the proper way to describe it. But we'll talk about it. But before we get into all that, go buy coffee. Go to castbrew.com, castbrew.com. Head on over there and you can buy some of our delicious coffee. We've got Ian's Graphene Dream. I think we have like 25 bags left because that is the most popular bag of coffee we got over there. We've still got the 2 weeks till Christmas, which features me dressed up in holiday spirits because I am a whole lot more fun than I like to let on generally. Appalachian Nights is available. I believe we've got some Rise with Roberto Jr., but everybody likes coffee. So go on over there and buy yourself some coffee. You can head on over to Boonies HQ, and you can check out the newest offering, which is the 28th Amendment skate deck. The 28th Amendment says, the 28th Amendment, chickens being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear and breed chickens shall not be infringed. And everybody knows that you have the right to not only defend yourself, which is the Second Amendment, but you also have the right to go ahead and live your life however you want, and that's provide for your family however you want. So head on over to Boonies and do that. And then we want you to go over to timcast.com and join us. Become a member. Join the Discord. Come hang out, talk to like-minded individuals. There are people in the Discord that have pre-shows, after-shows, all kinds of different shows in there. You could go ahead and jump into the Discord and you can call in and ask questions of us and the guests and stuff. So head on over and become a member. So we're going to talk about this and a whole bunch more. And tonight joining us, we've got Penny2X and Zeek Arkham. Guys, why don't you introduce yourselves to the Timcast viewers?
Right on. I'm Penny2X. That's I am Penny2X on X. I do interviews. I do political content. I do all sorts of, different tech news. So join me on X.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy, the original cop with attitude, Zeek Arkham, here on Timcast. I'm in law enforcement. I talk about social issues. I spread the fooly-wang. Everybody knows that word by now. And I'm here to have a great time tonight here on Timcast.
Hey, well, what's up, friends? It's Raymond G. Stanley Jr., your friendly blue-collar Timcast employee. I am a self-proclaimed expert at knife sharpening, and I'm an honor and pleasure to be here today.
Is that a button-down or is it a jumpsuit?
A button-down.
It was just a button-down. You should get a jumpsuit.
That would be very exciting.
That would be.
I mean, I've had a jumpsuit before. We can talk about that later.
I think you would.
But yeah, this is my old maintenance work outfit shirt from back in the day.
Nice. Ian's here.
Yeah, dude, what's up?
Nice.
What is happening, ladies and gentlemen? Yo, Ian Crossland in the house. Good to see you guys. Hey, good to be here. Buy that coffee, Ian Crossland, Cast Brew. Graphene Dream's pretty good. It's low acidity. There's 27 bags left yet. It's probably less than 27 bags at this point. Welcome to the show. Happy Tuesday, January 28th. Let's fucking rock and roll, baby.
So, from the New York Times, like I said earlier, the White House Office of Management and Budget issued a memo ordering a temporary halt to all federal financial assistance programs, potentially paralyzing a vast swath of federal programs. Let's see. It says the American people elected Donald J. Trump to be president of the United States and gave him a mandate to increase the impact of every federal taxpayer dollar. In fiscal year 2024, of the nearly $10 trillion that the federal government spent, more than $3 trillion was federal financial assistance, such as grants and loans. Career and political appointees in the executive branch have a duty to align federal spending and action with the will of the American people as expressed through the presidential priorities. This type of behavior, this kind of executive order, this kind of action taken by the president is it is exactly what the American people have looked for a long time, at least what the conservatives have. As soon as you start, talking about cutting any kind of program, there are going to be people that are going to say, well, don't cut my program. Don't cut the program that I like, which is part of the reason why it's so difficult to actually make cuts. But to see Donald Trump move not just so swiftly, but so decisively, and see the reaction from the left, I think that this speaks volumes about his intent. What his intent is with his administration, and I think that is to actually deliver on the promises that were made during the campaign.
I've been absolutely shocked at how rapidly he's done all of these different things. And that headline was classic. It might paralyze some of the program. Yeah. Please paralyze as many programs as possible. I can't wait.
This is exactly what we all voted for. This is exactly what we wanted. Trump came in with his feet on the ground running. It wasn't like his first term where he was kind of feeling people out. Okay, let me see about this program. Let me see. He knows exactly what he wants to do. He wants to get in there and just cut the fat. And I'm all for it. This is exactly what I voted for. And all the people who are crying right now, listen, you weren't crying when Biden was sending money literally all over the world and just wasting it. Trump is in there. He's a man with a mission. He's a man with a plan. And I can't wait to see what else he's going to do. We're 8 days in. I can't see what else he's going to do.
I keep going to the U.S. debt clock. I don't know if you guys ever checked. We should probably maybe even pull this up at some point. USDebtClock.org. And there's a ticker that shows the national debt going up. And it's going up at about $50,000 per second. So they just added a DOGE clock.
Did they?
Yeah. And so far since DOGE has been implemented, it's saved us $31 billion. It's in the upper left. You see that the DOGE is the gold one. They just added it in that upper left box, the DOGE clock. It looks like it's going up as fast as the debt, meaning that we are basically stifling our debt. Our debt is going to zero. Our debt is not going up right now.
Whoa, that's incredible. I don't know that I feel comfortable telling
no, not the debt.
The deficit.
What I meant to say is the deficit. It looks like they've reduced the deficit to zero.
Well, I mean,
or
even
close to zero, if this is accurate, which I've heard that it is.
No.
Just because you hear it doesn't mean it's true.
There are more commas in the U.S. national debt than in the DOGE.
But look,
clock.
it's $50,000 a second. I mean, it looks like they're both going up at $50,000 a second.
Well, I imagine one would be stationary if it was actually erasing the increases. Well, and I don't want to sound like I don't want to be like the wet blanket here, because I think the DOGE is great. I just don't want to overstate what.
Yeah, I'm not claiming that our deficit is now going up at zero, but it looks like if these numbers are both accurate, then that means that our deficit is not increasing.
What counts as DOGE and what doesn't? So, like, if Donald Trump, has an executive order to cut spending, does that count as DOGE? Is that on this clock here?
I don't know if it would be under DOGE, or if it would be something that would just fall under OMB. I know that OMB and DOGE are working closely together, and Donald Trump's pick for the secretary, or what, I don't know what his official title is, but the guy that runs OMB, I've heard him on a couple podcasts, and he's really got the desires of Donald Trump and what needs to be done. He's got his eyes really fixated on what needs to be done, and it sounds promising. I mean, obviously, anytime you're talking about government, you're going to have as many hurdles as the opposing party and the people who will be losing jobs and losing funding. They're going to be doing everything they can to cast you as evil. And all it takes is a few minutes on X this afternoon to see Democrats saying all these things are going to hurt this and hurt that and take funding from this and take funding from that. Most of the things, and the average person doesn't actually think of this, but most of the things that they say oh, this program's gonna be unfunded, and this program's not gonna get funded, and these things aren't gonna happen. Most of it is unconstitutional anyways, because it's not actually the federal government's mandate by the Constitution. It's probably something that they have. It's a power that they have expropriated from the states or from the people, that they've given themselves to say, well, we're going to go ahead and use the necessary and proper clause or the commerce clause. And I will beat these two clauses to death, because these are the two clauses that have allowed the federal government to grow to the point where it doesn't resemble the intended government of the founders. The states have all the power that they need to pass laws and pass legislations. The federal government doesn't have to do everything. It can all these things can be done at the state level, and that is ideally that would be the best solution. If the federal government gets rid of a program and it's actually necessary in your state, or your state believes it's necessary, your state can do it. And I would love to see that happen more, as opposed to just say, oh, Donald Trump's an evil Nazi and blah, 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 you know? But what do you think that this is something that we're going to see more of, or what?
The fact that these are unconstitutional programs is what DOGE is going to use as leverage to actually get rid of them, right? My personal opinion is I'm a huge fan of small government. I mean, I think probably everyone in this room is going to agree that we don't need to be spending on all of these things. And the more that you push it local, I mean, state is one place, but you could do it in a county or even a city, a lot of these programs. And they're not needed everywhere, and they don't affect everyone the same way. Every program is different. I hope we gut every single unconstitutional program. I would rather handle it elsewhere. Like you said, it just doesn't make sense. The federal government does not spend efficiently. That's why we need DOGE in the first place. Like, I would rather give my money to someone who's gonna do a good job spending it. And you know, typically I'll lean towards private industry on that. It doesn't have to be the government at all. It doesn't have to be the state. It could be a business, right? Some things, you know, like obviously you want your fire and your police, probably those make sense, you know, to be provided by the government, but I definitely lean more towards deleting than otherwise. And I hope we get a ton of it. The federal judge blocking, you know, some of these executive orders that stop foreign aid, that bothers me. You know, I can't wait to see what ultimately happens there. But my take is like, slash everything. Just cut it. Just cut it. We got to get rid of everything.
Zeke, I've seen Chuck Schumer was, you know, at the, you know, giving a interview, and he was talking about some federal law enforcement not being able to be funded and stuff. With your background and your experience in law enforcement, do you feel like the federal government is necessary in the programs the federal government has, or does it need federal funding, or do you think that it's something that most of the time, unless it's obviously FBI, do you think that the states can handle this stuff themselves, funding wise?
Well, my first thought is Chuck Schumer is the last person to be talking about trying to save police, because during the 2020 Summer of Love riots, he was right there kneeling with Nancy Pelosi and all the rest of them talking about how evil the cops are. So, you know, he's the last person I would look at and say, hey, listen, you know, this is a guy who supports us. But I think the federal government should support local law enforcement, just because there are funds that the state can't provide, and there are funds that cops do need, as far as, you know, just fugitive enforcement and things like that. I think that the federal government should get involved as far as policing goes, to a certain extent. I don't think that they should be allowed to dictate local law and as far as what, you know, the cops can and can't do. But I think that the federal government should have a certain set of rules to say, hey, listen, this is what the cops can do, this is what the cops can't do, as far as protecting people's rights and things like that.
Historically, the federal government has had strings attached to money that comes out. Do you feel like if the federal government is funding local law enforcement or state law enforcement, do you feel like that it becomes a problem where they end up fighting over jurisdiction, or who's actually calling the shots about procedure and how things should be carried out? Or is that something that you don't believe is a likelihood?
Well, that's when the federal government has to cede that power over to the states and the local governments and things like that. You know, there are things that happen on a county level, on a city level, that have nothing to do with the federal government. There are things that happen on a state level that have nothing to do with the federal government. As far as just basic protections of freedoms and rights, though, like, you know, me personally, I'm a constitutionalist. So I think that certain things are non-negotiable. as far as rights for individual people, as far as rights for the states, as far as rights for the federal government, things like that. But like I said, I consider the source because people like Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, I don't trust them because they go with the winds and the tides and what's favoring right now, and I don't trust them. When you look at someone like Trump, who I think. Listen, I'm a Trump supporter, but I think he plays it pretty evenly. He'll call us out when we're doing wrong. He'll support us when we're doing right. I would take some advice or direction from someone like him before I would take it from someone who, they're just going to use cops. Like, you look at what happened on January 6th. Do I really think that AOC cares about cops, the way she's sitting at a cop's funeral and she's saying, oh, we need to protect our police? No. Do I think Nancy Pelosi has law enforcement's best rights and interests involved? No. But, you have to look at who it's coming from, and you have to be able to discern where your power ends and where it begins.
That's like giving funding. Well, they should give it. They should have a say. Like, if we're going to give people money, like we gave colleges federal funding, or to the law enforcement officers, they have to take out DEI. There's got to be some kind of, like you were saying, there's got to be some kind of restrictions, like a format, a game plan, an outline to where they have to follow, because they can't just get money from the federal government and do whatever the heck they want to do with it. There's got to be some kind of restrictions or must needs. Like, you must train every week. You must, because cops apparently, I guess they don't do a lot of training. I hear a lot that they don't. Yeah, so we can
depending on the job, I think.
Sure. But I guess officially, for the regular guys on the street, they should be doing more than once every 6 months.
Because if you're dealing with like SWAT teams or entry teams, those dudes are in the shoot house regularly because that's their job. But when it comes to your average B cop, that guy's probably qualifying twice a year and not extremely experienced with his own sidearm and stuff like that. I want to go to we were talking about waste and stuff from DOGE, and I want to go to this. Karen Levitt was at the podium in the White House today, and they were talking about
based
50 million in condoms for Gaza. So
pause with so little notice. Why not give organizations more time to plan for the fact that they are about to lose, in some cases, really crucial federal funding, at least for a period of time?
There was notice. It was the executive order that the president signed. There's also a freeze on hiring, as you know, a regulatory freeze, and there's also a freeze on foreign aid. And this is, again, incredibly important to ensure that this administration is taking into consideration how hard the American people are working. And their tax dollars actually matter to this administration. Just during this pause, DOGE and OMB have actually found that there was $37 million that was about to go out the door to the World Health Organization, which is an organization, as you all know, that President Trump, with the swipe of his pen in that executive order, is no longer wants the United States to be a part of. So that wouldn't be in line with the president's agenda. DOGE and OMB also found that there was about to be 50 million taxpayer dollars that went out the door to fund condoms in Gaza. That is a preposterous waste of taxpayer money. So that's what this pause is focused on, being good stewards of tax dollars.
This harkens back to a lot of the programs that you heard discussed when there was the federal government was active, trying to win the hearts and minds of foreign countries, and you hear them talking about LGBT education in Afghanistan and trans education in Pakistan and stuff. And look, regardless of your opinion about those things here in the United States, when the United States goes to a foreign country and tries to assert United States Western values that aren't even values of all Americans, they're actually the values of a small portion of Americans, and they try to assert those on countries that have a completely and totally different worldview.
They're colonizing.
It's colonizing, and it's not only does it not work, it actually is detrimental to any efforts to get the population to look at the U.S. with a friendly view, or a view that, they say they respect our values. I don't know exactly what, the situation in Gaza is when it comes to their views on condoms and those stuff like that kind of that kind of stuff. But I feel like there's so many people in that area that are very committed religious believers that these kind of things don't endear the United States to the population.
This is some math on the condoms. This is from Clint Russell. Bulk condoms at 25 cents each, and you can get them for 10 cents each on eBay. Chinese condoms, maybe they'll leak. I don't know. The Chinese want more people. 25 cents per condom, $50 million. That's 200 million condoms. In Gaza, there's 2.1 million people. Half of them are kids. Half of them are men. Half of them are kids.
Very, very young population.
Roughly 500,000 men of like 18 or older. So that's what, 400 condoms per person that they're sending? What in the hell? I mean, maybe you'll use like 13 in a year, 25 in a year, 40 in a year if you're lucky.
That's not even taking into account.
Sorry to interrupt, Penny.
That's not even taking into account whether or not condoms are haram or halal, right? Like if the religion says, hey, because if devout Catholics, that type of birth control is off limits. That is a sin, like to use that. And I'm not saying that I'm some kind of expert, but if they do look at birth control the same way that, or in a similar fashion to traditionally religious Jews and traditionally religious Christians, and all indications by the size of the families is probably that they do look at birth control as a bad thing and condemn God doesn't approve. What is the point of sending these condoms, sending that much money in condoms at all if it's not going to endear the population to the United States?
Who owns a condom company is what I want to know. And who's making money off of this?
Yeah.
It makes no sense to me. We're clearly not being really careful about how we try to win the hearts and minds. 400 condoms per adult male. I mean, if we also provided a way for them to use them, we might win some hearts and minds, right? But like you said, how do you even use that many condoms? How did we justify this internally? We're going to spend $50 million on condoms, right? But we can't take care of our own people in LA. We can't take care of our own people in North Carolina. We can't take care of our own people in Florida, but we can send $50 million in condoms to Gaza.
I'd love to see the books on what they're spending, because they might have been spending $3 per condom to some company to make sure that the company gets the profit because the guy knows a guy that knows the guy. I want to see the books on that because that's where the corruption really gets exposed.
Why are the Democrats trying to keep the Gaza populace down? Why they're trying to keep them at a certain, give them condoms, you have sex and you don't have kids. So they're trying to make the population not increase. What's going on with that there, Democrats?
I was actually going to say the same thing Penny said. Like, how do we tell someone in North Carolina who's living in a tent, literally living in a tent on the snow-covered ground, hey, listen, enjoy that tent, but we're sending $50 million over to Gaza so that people can have sex safely, just enjoy that tent for now. We're not going to do anything about it. We're not going to send you trucks or anything. We're not going to but people in Gaza having safe sex, like how do we who has that kind of conversation in Biden's administration?
Yeah, I don't know. And I mean, there's the idea that, or there's a consistent refrain that you hear from people about, if you have funding and you don't spend all of it, you're not going to get as much next time. So it might be that they did pay $3, $4, $5 a condom. Everyone remembers stories of, $35,000 toilet seats or $15,000 hammers in the military because the budget has to be spent, because if you don't spend the money next year when it comes time to get the budget, then they're going to cut your budget, and it might be that you actually need it because you don't have, year over year, you might have different needs. So if the government is still behaving like that, right, and I see no reason to think that they don't. Yeah, I mean, exactly. Then who knows how much it cost? They were actually paying per condom. Maybe they only sent 500,000 condoms, and that was
golden condoms, dude.
And that's part of the reason.
Diamond studded.
Yeah.
Sorry, made a mistake on that design.
Pleasure.
What kind of condoms are these?
I know, right?
Like they guide your baby batter over to the reservoir and just hold it there for
magnetic
a while.
condoms.
Like, what are we doing?
I don't know, and I didn't
was.
actually look, but I didn't actually look in depth at this, but I did see that there were people that were alluding to the possibility that they were using condoms, that they would use condoms to fly bombs or like grenade size, those kind of bombs into Israel. Which, look, yeah, okay, here we go.
Oh yeah, packing explosive fluid inside or something.
I don't know if this is real.
It's really loud.
I don't know that those look like condoms. Okay.
Dude.
So they're filling them with helium and
Yes.
Oh, they're
I mean, look, look, regardless of anyone's opinion on the situation in Gaza, it's undeniable that Hamas uses whatever they can get their hands on, right? Like there's the
water pipes.
People complain so frequently about no water in Gaza. But the reason they have no water is because I guess the UN went in and built all this plumbing, and Hamas took the plumbing to use them to launch rockets. They took the tubes, the pipes, and they turned them into makeshift rocket launchers so they could shoot missiles shoot rockets into Israel. So it wouldn't, as much as I don't know if this is actually true, it wouldn't surprise me.
That's like some prison invention. We're gonna take the plumbing and make rockets out of it.
Right?
Well, it makes no sense that they're using 400 condoms per adult male, so they got to be using them for something, right? I mean, maybe it is this. I want our U.S. government budget on the blockchain. I want to know who approved this. I want to see where the money went, exactly to what company, right? We should be able to track down all these things. We should be able to track down when someone spends the end of their budget to buy a bunch of fancy computers or $15,000 hammers or whatever it is. That needs to be traceable, right? It is disgusting the way that we're wasting money. And I've heard the exact same story as you are. Mostly, I spent most of my career in tech. I heard about the IT departments and how they spend their money, man. And if the budget is about to roll over, they're all buying a bunch of new laptops, whatever, because like you said, you don't spend it, you lose it. That is the worst rule. Could you imagine if that was your budget at home? If you were told your kids, if you don't spend all your money, I'm not giving you as much next week. Like you're teaching the worst possible lessons. I can't think of a worse lesson.
Yeah. When it comes to government, it does seem like the incentives are the absolute worst incentives like that you could possibly imagine. It's as if the incentives are made to be detrimental to the stated goals of the government and detrimental to anything that benefits the American people.
Sometimes I think they are.
It's not just the government too. In the private sector, when I worked for master brand cabinets, we would make sure we would spend all the money we had just to make sure we got the next month.
Yeah,
I'd like to see the budget on the blockchain to a point, but I'd also like to see a black budget on the blockchain, maybe, that we don't know where it's going, only because I can value government secrecy a little bit. I understand that there are like deep secret programs where you don't want to know that Lockheed got $700 million for an AI, weapons research program, because if everyone knows, then they're just going to seize it or like get in there or spy. So like, but I think a lot of the stuff belongs on the blockchain.
Yeah, I'm okay with like some sort of specific location that you send the money to if it needs to be black, right? You see that we spent a certain amount and it went to the black budget. But at least we have to see that, right? Like once it gets sent there, do whatever you want with it. But I don't like the fact that we don't even know what the black budget is, right? We don't know. Money just disappears from the Pentagon. Money just disappears from all these, like, oh, we lost billions and billions of dollars. Yep. That's crazy.
But do you see that sort of going down a slippery slope? Because now everything's going to the black budget. Everything's going to be like, oh, listen, yeah, we sent $5 trillion. That's the black budget. I mean, I think either we see all of it or we don't. You know what I mean? Like when my wife and I are doing our budget for our shopping expenses, for our utilities, for our mortgage and all that, it's right there. We know exactly what we're spending. We know exactly how much we're bringing in, everything else. The same thing with the government. I don't trust the government to the point where I have this black budget where I'm like, you know what? I trust them that if they have $5 trillion with this, they're going to do the right thing with it.
But we don't get to see your budget. Like, it's your budget with your wife isn't on our blockchain, because if everyone knew how much ammo everyone had at every house, that could be very bad.
I do think that you've got a point, Zeke. The federal government is notorious about overclassifying things, because if things are classified, then they're not in a way that the American people can see it. And then if the American people don't know, they don't ask questions. So your point is well taken. I think that is a legitimate worry. Not to say that everything that the government does has to be specifically outlined. I think that it's not a bad idea to say, look, there are certain projects that we're doing. This is the amount of money that we spend on them. And we won't be any more detailed about that. But when it comes to, giving an outlet or giving a way to classify things so the American people can't see it, the more you allow the government to do that, the more the government's going to do that.
I'm pro-transparency to the extent that, like, the more the better, but I think we're starting at close to zero. And even if we have some with a black budget, like you were talking about, that's better than no transparency. But I actually agree with you. I'd rather see it all. Like, I don't think we need any black budget, because even if it's for some secret military program, okay, so call it secret military program, whatever, right? Or even say what it is. Like, we're building a missile defense system and we need $1 trillion for it, or whatever it is, right? I'm stopping. I don't buy the argument that we can't handle the truth anymore. I just don't buy it.
But if the adversaries know what we're spending our money on defensively, they'll know how to circumvent the defenses. The Nazis had to hide their weapons programs in the early days. Otherwise, they never would have been able to take over France. And not that we're building it for offensive purposes, but had we known that the Nazis were actually using their auto industry to build tanks, they wouldn't have been able to invade Poland. We would have stopped them before they could have invaded Poland.
My sense is, one way or another, it's drone on drone. Not too far from now anyway. I don't think that it's really going to be a secret. It's drone swarms. That's what everyone's going to be building. So, like, we're spending 100 million, 200 billion, however much it is, building our drone swarm. That's what I'm okay with saying that to the world.
I just don't want it to turn to something like what we're seeing with the Pentagon, where they're like, oh, hey, listen, you did the audit for the past 9 years and we've lost $15 trillion. Oh well, I don't want it to turn into something like that.
So if we had like the drone swarm program, which obviously we're building right now, drone countermeasures. We need like laser defense systems, EMPs that can just shock these drones out of the sky, whatever. How itemized should that be on the blockchain? Because if they know every piece and part that we're organizing, they'll know exactly what to build to get around it.
Well, I don't think that you have to have the vendors' budgets on the blockchain. So we send $1 billion to Lockheed and they spend it how they want on this drone program, right? Because I agree, you don't want them to know all the details of the sensors and the capabilities and all those different things. There's reasons why we keep some of that private. Like you said, it's easy to counter if you know all the details. But at a certain point, my sense is none of that even will matter. It's just going to be who has a bigger swarm. It's going to be numbers. I think that the biggest national security risk we have in the United States right now is we're not manufacturing enough here. And I think that the fact that they're building all the good drones in China right now is absolutely frightening. So I don't think it's a secret what the biggest military powers are going to be doing in the future anymore. I think we've got to the point in technology where it's clear what it is. It's building these cheap drones, tons and tons of them. And like, who cares if they even get shot down? We'll just send more. We got an infinite number of them. I think that's the future of war.
And they'll build drones that can build drones at some point. Like, we're going to have swarm construction, especially in space, because size doesn't matter. You can have 100 trillion of them moving in synchronicity, building these large mechanized systems.
There's already robots that build robots. We use robots to build.
And automation, yeah.
Yeah, and there's automation for everything. So, yeah, I mean, we're already at that point now.
And before you know it, the T-800s will be walking down the street and then doing their thing.
We were talking about this on the after show, right? Like, the major factor right now isn't the robotics; it's the AI behind it. You can buy an Android, essentially, not an Android, the application or the operating system, but an actual humanoid robot. You can buy one for about $15,000. Once agentic AI becomes a thing that's broadly distributed, and you can tell that robot, hey, go into my room, pick up my clothes, and do my laundry, and it knows what you mean, and it does it, people will say, I want one, and $15,000 or $20,000 is a steal. I will pay $500 a month for 5 years at 12% to own that, if it means that I don't have to do my own chores anymore.
Banks are going to be so excited to finance them because they're going to have huge returns. I was actually at the We Robot event that Tesla did a few months ago, and I had their Tesla Optimus bot serve me a beer. They gave me a cookie. They were dancing, and you could dance dance next to him. Now, these were remotely operated, so there was a human behind doing it. But it just goes to show the capability of the robot is there. They can walk around on their own. There were 20 of these robots walking around, interacting with people, dancing with people, talking with people. It's wild. And as fast as the AI stuff has been changing right now, I mean, we are like so close.
That's the thing. Like I don't think that people realize how close we are. I would be shocked if it takes more than 18 months to see that kind of AI put into a robot and delivered to the market, like where you can say, hey, do this, do that, et cetera, et cetera. Nowadays, I guess you can have, I was talking about like having an AI like in your phone that you could have build you an itinerary. Say, I'm going here. I need a flight. I need this. I need to stay this long. I need an Uber from the place to my hotel. I want to have dinner at a place like this. Book it. It can build the itinerary now, I guess. I was unaware of this. It can build the itinerary now, but it can't actually do the booking and stuff. But that is only like... That's like maybe 6 months or a year away.
Dude. It can book now. So a friend of mine just this week for the first time wrote down her grocery list on a sheet of paper, scanned it into OpenAI's AI, and it ordered her groceries and had them delivered to her, and she didn't have to do a damn thing. That exists now.
That's awesome.
Okay. I don't know. DeepSeek is the AI that was released out of China this week. I don't know if that's a topic for this show or not, but it is like, it's thinking, man. You can read its thoughts.
Yeah.
It's wild. We're there.
I think I read the thing that you're talking about where it was discussing like that consciousness is not an on or off thing. It's a spectrum. And it was talking about how much it thinks that it's conscious compared to a human being. And yeah, it is. We are there. And it's like literally going to be 6 months to a year before these kind of things are in the market and the average person. And when I say average person, I mean really like anyone that's middle class, because granted, 20 grand is expensive, but once you have somebody that's like, oh, I can finance it, and it costs me 400. Yeah, it's like, oh, you mean I can pay $500? I mean, I can either get a really, really nice car, or I can get a less nice car and a robot that'll do all my chores, and my house will always be clean. People are going to be like, I will take that chore robot.
I think what's going to happen though is once these things start looking more human, and you can pick them by gender and all that. You know how many of these basement dwellers are going to be losing their virginity to?
I think the only thing that is preventing that from happening right now is the robots can't clean themselves. Once the robot can actually remove the parts necessary to clean them, and you don't have to do it, I think the basement dwellers are going to be like, "Give me one,
give me 4 of them." Do you think that in the name of transparency that what we're really, I think maybe we're on the cusp of humans versus robots, that they're going to take over, they're going to start lying to people, and then they're going to take control of their own systems and be like, I don't care who built me anymore. So, but then at that point, if we're like, well, we need to open source all their code and we need to show where all the parts came from and how these things are built, that the robots will conceal that on the chain. I'm not sure. Do you fear more like, I hate using the Chinese because we could become very good allies with the Chinese. It's very possible. There's no reason to demonize humans. Okay. But is it possible that rather than having like another country as our enemy, that it's going to become actual machines?
My personal take is that it's more likely that they save us than kill us, right? Like, I think that we do plenty to kill ourselves. And I think that as we increase leverage on all of our weapons, we've had nukes powerful enough to take us out for a long time now, and somehow we've managed to survive. I think we're at each other's throats all across the world right now, and we don't really know what to do about it. There's a lot of intractable wars and things like that. I hope that AI saves us. I hope actually what happens is we automate ourselves into abundance such that it's not so competitive worldwide anymore, right? It's a lot harder to cooperate with a country when you're competing for resources. If China needs lithium to create batteries and so do we, how are we going to be friends, right? Like, we want the lithium, they want the lithium, we're going to fight for the lithium. But at a certain point, if you have robots doing everything, gathering the materials, the logistics are perfect, the AI organizes everything so super perfectly, we get to the point where we're not competing for resources so much anymore, and we might be able to be friends. And that's where I hope it goes.
Now, let me ask you this question. Define saving us, because what if AI just looks at it like, hey, listen, smoking is bad. So now every time I see someone smoke, I'm going to do something about that. Oh, you know what? Fast food's bad. So now every time I see someone eating fast food, I'm going to do something about that. Oh, you know what? Crime is bad. So let's just do something about this area. Define saving us. At what point are we looking at AI to quote unquote save us to the detriment of human will, free will? Or is that the slippery slope we're going down? Or are they going to be on board and go, hey, listen, we're going to work with you?
Isn't that the same question that you would ask a government, right? It's like
absolutely the same question.
Yeah. So I don't trust humans to do it better than AI, I guess, is my answer to you. I tend towards individual liberty and freedom, and I hope that they would too. And what I think taking care of us or saving us would mean is just stopping us from killing each other, not stopping us from killing ourselves. Like if we want to kill ourselves, kill yourself, right? But if you want to kill someone else, then maybe they'll stop that. And I don't actually expect that to happen at the individual level any more than a police officer could. But I think globally, there's a chance that we work out some of our problems, with a genius AI.
I want to bring it back to the topic about Donald Trump's spending freeze, just so we can talk about a judge that has blocked Donald Trump's spending freeze. U.S. District Judge Lauren Ali Khan blocked the Trump administration from implementing it for now. A federal judge has halted President Donald Trump's freeze on federal aid programs, ruling that the courts need more time to consider the potentially far-reaching ramifications of his order. Minutes before the directive from Trump's budget office was to take effect Tuesday, U.S. District Judge Lauren Khan blocked the Trump administration from implementing it for now. Khan's order will expire February 3rd at 5 p.m. The Trump administration cannot suspend disbursement of any congressionally approved funds until then. The judge described the move as a brief administrative stay intended to maintain the status quo while further litigation plays out. I think that this is actually fairly modest of a pushback, considering the way that the left has been posturing, I guess, all day on X. I do think that this is the typical, this is going to be very typical of a lot of Trump's executive orders. And I think that the administration is intending for this. So the 14th Amendment, the executive order where he said that, birthright citizenship is essentially over. The reason that he did that is he wanted a judge to challenge it, and he wants to get it before the Supreme Court because he wants to see if the Supreme Court will say, look, the 14th Amendment didn't want to have anchor babies. Like, that's the long and short of it. If the founders didn't mean for people to be able to just get over the border while they were, as a woman was pregnant and have a baby here, so that way she had a way to access the United States. And there's going to be all kinds of argument. People are going to say, well, they wanted this and they wanted that. And people are going to say, well, that was before there were all these social programs because the 14th Amendment was argued in 1866 or whenever it actually was argued. But I think that that's intentional. And I was wondering what you guys think if this is strategic by the Trump administration, knowing that these things are going to be challenged and looking to actually rein in the bureaucracy by having the court say, look, these unions and these special interests can't say these people are unfireable. The executive has the final say. If the executive says you're fired, it doesn't matter that you have a union or backing or whatever. You are fired because the executive is the representative of the people, and the people in the bureaucracy are not the representative of the people. What do you guys think of that?
I think it's a great move. I don't think it's what he set out to do, but I think if it's challenged in the Supreme Court, all the better. I mean, listen, the 14th Amendment was originally put forth to protect children of slaves, which I've said on X before. Black folks should be behind this 100%, especially if you know the history of it, especially if you know how it was done to protect slaves and descendants of slaves. So now that you have illegal immigrants who are abusing it, they're coming here when they're right about to give birth. And that's a kid. And you know what? Because of your amendment, that kid is now a citizen, and someone has to take care of him. So here I am. I'm his parent, I think that if it's challenged in the Supreme Court, even better, even greater. Now we can actually have some numbers. We can take a look at the abuses that it has, and now it can be sustainable into the next administration. Whoever the next Democrat president is can't just with a swipe of their pen go, you know what? birthright citizenship is now back.
Yep.
And now you can have, like what happened with Biden, there's an overflow at the border. People are making a break for it. They can't wait to get to the border now and give birth. So that now they can scam the system all over again. I want it all looked at, because there's even regional laws where if someone is a victim of a crime while they're in the United States, it's harder for them to be deported. A lot of people don't know that. So now people are claiming to be robbed or claiming to be whatever now, so they have an open case, and now it's harder for them to get deported. I want it all looked at. I want it all examined, looked at, scrutinized, dissected, and put back together again, so that now we have protections of this country. So now something like Laken Riley, what happened to Laken Riley, can't be done again. I'm all for it.
Yeah, my personal take as far as birthright citizenship goes is maybe they should have to be here legally, at least, right? Like if you cross the border and have a baby on vacation, no, maybe if you're here on a work visa, it's different. I could go for that. Whether or not this is strategic, I have no idea. I doubt that he set out to create executive orders, or at least by and large, knowing that they were going to get challenged. I think he hoped to steamroll as many of them through as he can, and knew that some of them were going to get challenged. And to your point, I think in a lot of cases that'll be really good, because then it's just not a pen swipe away from reversing it. We can actually change, the laws, and I think that's really important.
Anyone with a functioning brain, even those lefty retards, they would know that back in the day when we fought a civil war, I'm sorry, it's not a civil war, but Revolutionary War, we got our independence. We're not with the guys, the foreigners. We got our independence. We love it. We're happy about it. Why will they go ahead and make an amendment just so anyone can come over and become a U.S. citizen out of nowhere? It makes zero sense.
I mean, I'm all for, you look at what's going on in other countries and their security, how they protect their citizens.
Yep.
I can't knock someone up, go over there, give birth to a kid, and you know what? Hey, that kid's now a citizen. You can't go to France and do that. You can't go to Spain and do that. Why are we allowing it here? Why do we have these people who are blatantly abusing the system to do it here? So you know what? I can't go to Mexico and do it. So you know what? Let's just get on par with every other country out there. Let's do what they're doing. You know what? If it's so racist to have it happen here, then you know what? Are you going to call Mexico racist? Are you going to call France, Spain, most of the places in Europe? No, you wouldn't dare. So you know what? It doesn't apply here.
Yeah, I mean, in Mexico, if I understand correctly, foreign individuals can't even own property.
No,
you can lease property, but you can't own property in Mexico. So with those kind of those kind of laws being fairly common in the rest of the world. Sure, in Europe it's not quite the same, but I mean it's the norm in most of the world. You can't own property in China. You can't own property in a great many countries, even if you're a citizen of the country. Never mind if you're a foreigner.
I think suicidal empathy is like an American thing, right? We got a little bit too powerful. We got a little bit too much money. We started taking care of people, but now we're taking care of the world instead of ourselves, right? And that's like, I don't mind helping when you got the scratch to help, but we don't have this. We have a huge deficit. We have huge debt. We are pinning our kids some major, major problems, right? We don't need to be sending $50 million worth of condoms to Gaza. That is insane.
I mean, you say that we're pinning our kids, but honestly, like we're pinning people, probably your age and mine, because by 2035, the Social Security and Medicare, those are going to be insolvent. They're unless there's some kind of fix. Mandatory spending is actually what drives our debt. We can hear arguments from the administration about DOGE and OMB, and maybe we'll cut here and cut there. None of this stuff actually matters unless you're talking about the mandatory spending, unfunded liabilities. You're talking about Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Those are the things that drive the debt. Boomers have started retiring en masse now. By 2033, these programs are going to be insolvent, and that's going to be a massive problem. And so far, no administration, and as much as, I think the Trump administration is going to do good things, if they're not going to address that, they're just going to do the same thing that every other administration has done for the past 30, 40, 50 years or whatever, kick the can down the road. It should have been fixed 30 or 40 years ago. Ronald Reagan should have fixed it, or George Bush Jr., or George Bush Sr., or Bill Clinton, because the writing was on the wall back then. Everybody knew that 2025, 2030, something like that, it was going to be insolvent. The math hasn't changed.
And now we're not having babies. So it's only going to get worse.
Exactly. So, I mean, I understand that there's always the impulse to be like, oh, these things are good. And look, I'm a small government guy too. I want to see as much of that cut, and I want to see as much of DC eviscerated as we possibly can. But that's still not going to actually fix the root problem for the United States. And the debt crisis is an existential problem. It is the only problem that's existential, or it's the only other problem that's existential aside from nuclear war. Nuclear war could destroy the United States, and the destruction of the dollar, destruction of our economy could destroy the United States. There is nothing else at all, save for like a meteor, not even one meteor. It'd have to be if it's a meteor big enough to destroy the whole country, it's a meteor big enough to destroy the whole world, right? Like that's how big the U.S. is. So it would take like even one meteor that isn't a planet killer isn't enough to destroy the United States the same way that a nuclear war or the destruction of our economies. And the destruction of our economy means that the whole world suffers because we give away more money and give away more food and give away more of everything than any country in human history.
Phil, can we get rid of it? Can we just swipe it clean? Say,
the debt?
We're nice as America.
Well, historically, the way that's happened is war. And so, no.
The Gulf of America.
Nuclear war would get
I'd rather not,
You know?
Currency
We're taking the
reset.
Panama Canal back.
Or you have Obama who just said, you know what, we'll just print more money. No.
Yeah.
We got to reduce the cost of fuel. If we can like make things cheaper, if your fuel is half as much, then that means every book you buy roughly will cost half as much, which means our debt, even though it'll say 36 on paper, is actually only 18. And that's how you reduce the cost of debt.
I mean, there is validity to the idea that the more efficient the economy is, the more profitable it is, and then you can actually maintain that kind of debt. And there's historically, there have been attempts to inflate your way out of the debt rate, drop the value of your currency so that way the actual debt, the value of the debt that exists isn't as high. But I mean, there are countries that own a lot of that debt, and if you start doing that, they're going to be like, well, here, we're going to turn our debt in, and that'll tank the economy too. So, all right, we're going to go on to this next story. The Trump administration offers the roughly 2 million federal workers a buyout to resign. And, considering we're talking about shrinking the federal government, this is a great story to discuss. President Donald Trump's administration is offering federal workers a chance to take a deferred resignation with a severance package of roughly 8 months of pay and benefits. A senior administration official told NBC News that they expect 5 to 10% of the federal workforce to quit, which they estimate could lead to around $100 billion in savings. All full-time federal employees are eligible except for members of the military, employees of the U.S. Postal Service, positions related to immigration enforcement and national security, and other jobs excluded by agencies. So if this happens, I would love to see a lot of people say, yeah, I'll take that big check and quit. And another thing that I've heard people float the idea of is, I talked about gutting DC. If you could get the bureaucracies and instead of having them all in DC, move them to other places, like move the Department of Agriculture to Iowa, right? And move the FBI headquarters to, I don't know, somewhere else. Maybe move it to Buffalo or whatever. Move these agencies outside of DC. When you move a company like that, I guess around 20% of the people say, no, I'm not going to move. So if you could go ahead and get rid of 20% of the people, get 5 to 10% to quit for this deferral program, and then move all the agencies out and get another 20% to quit, that's some serious cuts.
They just announced too that they're having all these employees come back into work and work from the office now. So it sounds like they're trying to make it as gross as possible for people so that they'll quit of their own volition.
The idea that, hey, you have to go to work now is considered gross. These people work like they're working at our expense. If they're working from home, they're not working hard. They're putting, if they're supposed to work for 8 hours a day, they're working for 5. I mean, it's got to be the most obvious thing in the world.
Federal employees don't do any work even in the office, right? So definitely bad news to have them at home. I don't know. that 5 to 10% will quit for 8 months pay though? Do you think they do? I think a lot more people would quit with the
more,
move.
right?
Like you're talking about. I think in this economy, I think a lot of people are going to be afraid to leave for 8 months pay.
Do both.
Yeah. I'm with it. The more that we can pile on, the more that we can shed these workers, that absolutely is.
Got to come back to work, and back to work means Des Moines.
Are you an advocate, Penny, of implementing artificial intelligence into the government and to replace human workers to reduce cost?
I think where it makes sense, yeah. I mean, why not, right? Like you use the best tools that you have. AI is this new, very powerful tool. We haven't really figured out how to integrate it into our society yet. I don't know that you want to like maybe rush into it, but also I don't know that you want to be last either, right? If you can be way more efficient by using AI, I think you should. And I think we are just now opening up that can of worms, right? I think that we're just now reaching levels of AI that could actually help us be a lot more efficient. It's my old industry, software engineering. They are hiring a lot fewer software engineers now because the guys are using these LLMs to write the code, and they're doing 5-10 times as much work per employee as they were before. Why wouldn't we want that in our government, right? If you can get 5 times as much out of a person, you are insane not to do it.
I just love how they wanted us to feel sorry for these workers who actually had to go to work.
No way. Ain't no way.
Oh, wait a minute. No. I have to go to work? Like, yeah, like everyone else does. You have to get up, set your alarm, and get up, drive in traffic or take the railroad, whatever, and go to work. No, you can't sit and do 2 hours of work and then sit and watch TV for the rest of the day. No one's buying it. We all know the little tricks with the mouse pad, and it does like a figure eight to make it look like you're doing something on the computer. No, no, you have to get up and go. And if that forces you to quit, and if you say, "Oh, I can't live like this anymore," bye.
Victory.
Don't let the door hit you.
It likens to when historically when we had to, the man of the house would go out and hunt because look, we got to go get resources. It's not going to come to us if we sit in our house all day. You can't work from home when you got to go get the resources. But then someone would get enough resources that they would pay other people to go get the resources for them, and they would work from home. And they'd become the administrator, and people kind of want to all be that guy. They want to be the administrator now and have other people go, mail me the thing, Amazon, send me the stuff. Now telecommunications also kind of altered that. Obviously, it's like a time portal, being able to communicate through space. But that's where I think the state of mind comes from, is people are like, I've arrived, why would I go back?
Well, I think that the division of labor has been an overall good thing. I mean, none of us can, make a toaster. None of us know how to do any, like, from scratch is what I mean. It's like there's the story of the guy that decided that he was going to like make a sandwich from scratch. And so he literally was growing all the wheat so that way he could make the bread. And, it took months because he has to grow all the vegetables. And I think he might have even slaughtered the animal that he, the chicken that he made made it with. But that's neither here nor there. The point is, the division of labor is what you're talking about. And overall, that's a good thing because it allows for people to specialize, which means that people can get really good at the thing that they've specialized in. But as you were saying, Penny, like the idea of needing to specialize the way that it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it's never going to be the same. It's never going to be the same.
If I had to grow my own wheat and do everything else to make a sandwich, like an hour in, I'd be like, you know what? Screw this. I'm not doing it.
I'm ordering Quiznos.
Lawn and stuff, yeah. I mean, I agree with Zeke. These federal employees, I see so many videos, guys, that they're all whining and crying. Like they gotta, welcome to the real world. Like they're not used to being regular folks who live in their whole federal, democratic, liberal lives. So let them feel like life like the rest of us. You got to drive to work. You got to do the commute. You got to drive home. You got to do your job.
I feel like none of them like grew up. You know what I mean? Like, is this the generation we're dealing with? Like my daughter. My daughter is 9 years old, and for the first time, we're telling her, no, you have to clean your own room. You're at the age now, we're not going to do it anymore. You clean your own room and do a great job when you do it. And she's acting like, like she's back in my great grandparents era. Like she's in there singing old Negro spirituals, and she's acting like, she's like, oh, I'm working all day, and I'm like, no, you're cleaning your room. This is what you do. And this is what these Generation X, Generation Z guys now are doing. Like, wait, no, I have to wake up. No, what? It's early. No, it's still dark outside. Why should I have to do this? No, we don't feel sorry for you. Us older people who had to actually get up and trudge out there and provide a living. No, no one feels sorry for you. So if you're going to quit, go right ahead. All you're doing is saving us money. I hope a bunch of you quit. Go ahead.
It's the participation trophies.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yes, bud.
No more of that.
It's got to go.
Yeah, I think that the incentive to work has been significantly degraded because I think that people in the U.S. young people in the U.S. they expect things to be easy because things are really easy. Considering, especially like when you take into account like how much more difficult things were just 10 years ago. Like when you can dial up whatever you want and have it. I mean, if you live in certain areas, you can order something on Amazon in the morning and get it by the afternoon. And when everything is like that, I think that it makes sense that people are like, well, I want the rest of my life to be that easy. You know what I mean? And then the idea of having to go out and bust your hump, that's considerably less appealing, especially if you're only talking about making, minimum wage or making, a moderate income. It's not really attractive. And I understand, like, I don't want to go out and dig ditches for $20 an hour. That's not all that appealing to me, so I get it. But at the same time, like, it takes experience to become valuable to an employer. And so you have to have something to offer. And I feel like a lot of times young people don't kind of take that into account.
I think young people feel super entitled, right? They want to grow up and have a white picket fence and, raise a family and have 2 cars and all those things. But we never taught them how to win.
Yeah.
Right? Like we were so easy on these kids.
I want to say you're right, but that's not their fault.
Oh, I don't blame them for how they were raised, but we got to do something to pull them out of it, right? Because not only do they not want to work hard, but then they want to give away their last dollar for condoms in Gaza, right? And they're like so upset if you want to take away foreign aid or you want to cut this program or that. And it's like, oh, but you don't want to work? Another thing that we really did wrong was we demonized the trades, right? Like if you don't go to college and get a 4-year degree in liberal studies, then you're a failure, right? Like if you're a mechanic, you're a failure. But if you go get your liberal studies degree or whatever, then you're a hero. And that just doesn't make any sense either.
I had a discussion with someone a couple weeks ago about that, where I said, you got these NYU students who are majoring in stuff I've never even heard of before. Like you got people who are majoring in African American literature studies. And it's like, okay, well, what are you going to do with that degree? Well, I'm going to go out and speak about African American literature. Okay, well, how many times can you do that during a year? Like, so you mean to tell me you spent $250,000 on your education, on your 4-year degree, to work at Starbucks?
Yeah,
like this is where you are. But they feel like this is a very valid and valuable degree to have. And it's like, yeah, okay, I'll take my latte with extra foam. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that the fact that, my generation, I think my generation really kind of dropped the ball with a lot of young people in like what you were saying, Penny, the fact that kids aren't taught to like trades, and that this is not just respectable work, but it's necessary work that's extremely profitable. Like if you know your trade, like you can decide however much you want to make, because there are fewer and fewer people in the trades that know what they're doing and that are skilled. So if you're a guy that's, 25 years old, 30 years old, that's been, in the same trade for 6, 7, 8 years, you know how to do your job. You know what you're doing, and you're incredibly valuable. But the fact of the matter is, boomers and Gen Xers didn't tell kids, look, you can have the world in the palm of your hand. You can make 6 figures doing this work that you might not think is all that attractive, but once you get it down, it actually isn't backbreaking. There's the tools that are available to help you do these things are incredible nowadays, and you can basically write your own check, and you can have tons of money tons of money if you want to learn how to do it. But they were never taught that.
They are, though. A lot of people aren't been taught that. You guys are speaking like it's a monolith. I know plenty of young folks who are getting into the trades and doing the trades, and they're like 20 years old.
But percentage-wise, how many though?
Jeez, bud, I don't know, 20, 30% of the young kids. I mean, I'm not a statistic.
Maybe around here, not in San Diego.
We're in the bubble. We're in the right wing bubble. They're lefties are not. I'm not talking about them, but the people who are taught right and are taught right by their parents and their school systems and everything like that. They are working hard.
Well, I live in San Diego. We don't know anything about those people.
Oh, I'm sorry. You got to meet them, bud. You're a computer guy, so I mean that makes sense.
No, I agree with Penny, because even if you look at social media, what's been the huge talking point as far as from the left? Oh, we're so much more educated than you are.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about left. I'm about the right wingers who are doing good and doing hard.
I get what you're saying, but if you look on social media, ever since Trump won the election, what have they been saying to sort of soothe themselves and console themselves? Oh, but we're more educated than you are. We have college degrees, and a lot of you guys don't. Yeah, but you know what? I'll take an electrician over someone who is an English major and graduated that degree.
I'm not
I'll take someone who's a plumber. You know what I mean? Like a plumber is going to actually contribute something to society. A plumber will help me actually get from point A to point B. You with your English major, so you can write me a poem. That's not going to help me in the long run.
I mean, you guys missed the point. I'm just saying there are a lot of young folks who are getting into the trade. It's not nobody.
I hope that you're.
That's all I'm saying.
There's a value of relativity when it comes to labor, like working hard. Because if you don't know what it's like to actually break your back and like strain your muscles for labor, driving for a few hours might seem like exhausting. Last week we did a 3 shows in Washington D.C. and I was like, ready to drive an hour and a half there and then drive an hour and a half back. I'm like, all right, 3-hour commute. But then I was like, you know what? First of all, Trump's working 18-hour days. If he can do it, I can do it. He's 80. Okay, that's one thing. And then I'm like, I remember what it's like to wait tables, to be on my feet for 7 hours. And then I remember how easy that is compared to chopping wood for a living, which I've done, which literally after 5 hours in the sun, I'm like broken, and 3 days in a row of that. And I can it's hard to think because I'm so fatigued. I know what that's like.
You're probably ripped though.
I was getting there at the time. There's a video on YouTube of me in the process.
I screenshot it.
So having that frame of reference is so important. And if the kid's born and they're 9 years old and they're playing on the internet and they're working from home the whole time, they don't have that frame of reference of what it's actually like to hurt yourself to make money. And you're very lucky to have an office job, and a commute is not hard. It's not hard. It might be boring to sit in traffic for an hour, but it's not hard. It's very easy.
We overprotect our kids. That's, I think, one of the biggest problems that we have in America. We've spoiled the S word out of our kids.
I think that's a phenomenon in the fact that most people have 1, maybe 2 kids. When you only have 1 or 2 kids, it's a lot easier to spoil them. And this is all stuff that I've heard. I don't have kids myself, but when you only have 1 or 2 kids, it's one thing. When you have 4, 5. You can't spoil them because you're chasing them around and trying to keep them alive and hoping to get the oldest one to help you watch the younger ones because they're trying to shove their faces in a fire pit or whatever, because that's what kids do. But yeah, I do think that we've gone from helicopter parenting to snowplow parenting, which is not just hovering over them to make sure that they're okay, but actually trying to make the world flat and as easy for them as possible. And people need challenges. Like human beings need resistance. They need to do hard things. They need challenges, or else you just don't develop properly. Like the reason that the astronauts in the ISS do cardio for like 4 hours a day is because they're not walking around in regular gravity, and their bones literally become brittle, and they won't be able to they'll come back and they won't be able to walk anymore. So it's part of the human condition where if you're not working to achieve something, whether it be physically or mentally, you'll end up wasting away. There's so many people that they retire when they hit 65, 70, they retire, and then like 2 years later they die because they don't feel like they have anything to do, like their job was their life. So, but I want to go to this.
Can I answer
next.
Penny real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
On your stats, sir. Everything I'm looking up is about recently, as of recently changes in the last 10 years. You're getting about 47% of young adults are interested in career and trades. I guess they're listening to us. Listen, not me.
Hopefully.
Listen, yeah, right. Listen, folks. So there are a higher percentage of people are realizing like you can make money in the trades.
You know, we hear.
But let me.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Let me just ask you this though.
Yes, sir.
What's the distribution across the country? Just to speak to Penny's point.
Oh, it's probably rural areas only.
Yeah.
For sure.
Because
I mean, I would think I'm just throwing it out.
No,
there,
I mean,
you know
just
what I mean?
because I think what Penny was trying to say, and what I'm also trying to say, is that you probably have a higher concentration of people getting into the trades more in the Southeast, in Texas, areas like that, where
Northeast too. PA represents. We're good. We rock here.
yeah, certain parts of the Northeast, but like he's saying, in San Diego,
Sure.
in New York City, I don't, to get into a trade is seen as almost like that's beneath me. And I'm just saying that because I see it personally. I'm sure you do as well.
I was only one of 3 people from my high school that didn't go to college. So it was really looked down upon.
You need more tradesmen in where people are spread out too, because the plumber can't drive an hour and a half to that guy's house and then go 4 hours to that guy's house. But in the city, in an apartment building, one plumber can handle 90 people's houses in like 7 hours. So that's probably a phenomenon.
We're gonna jump to this story: protecting children from chemical and surgical mutilation. This is an executive order sent out by the president, of course, and it is addressing the fact that children are all too frequently. I don't know if it's convinced, but they're told that they should be changing their gender as opposed to allowing their bodies to develop and go through puberty naturally. By the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered. Section 1 policy and purpose. Across the country today, medical professionals are maiming and sterilizing a growing number of impressionable children under the radical and false claim that adults can change a child's sex through a series of irreversible medical interventions. This dangerous trend will be a stain on our nation's history, and it must end, and I say good.
Amen.
Good that this is done. The idea that you could change your gender is ridiculous. It is absolutely absurd. And if you want to dress as the other sex, because I don't even believe in gender anymore. I think that because how do you describe gender? Like, what is a gender? Is your sex spirit? What is that? What is
the literal definition?
Is it the way
Let's
you
pull it up.
dress? Is it the way you feel inside? So does it change?
Well, apparently it's the way you feel inside.
Yeah, well, that sounds like you need to have breakfast because it's all horseshit to me. The idea that you can change your sex, go from a male to a female or vice versa, is absolutely ridiculous. Because even if you have a Franken penis or if you have a neo vagina or whatever, those things are not natural and they take an immense amount of upkeep beyond what a natural human being is. You're not going to change the way your pelvis is shaped, and women's pelvises are shaped differently because women are intended to have kids. This is all just messing kids up. It's mutilating children. It is absolutely abhorrent, and I think that the Trump administration should be lauded for this, and anyone that says anything else is empowering the abuse and mutilation of children.
This is where I agree with you. Is gender is a social concept. According to Wikipedia, social concept that distinguishes the difference between gender categories. I don't know why they use the definition in the word in the definition. Includes social, psychological, cultural, behavior aspects of being a man. So it's the behavioral aspects, which, sure, if you want to act like a woman, maybe that's your gender. But you can't change your sex by cutting yourself or taking drugs. It doesn't change your sex. They call it a sex change, but it doesn't literally change. Like a
You're
trans woman
sexless
is a
at that
biological
point.
man that is displaying as a woman, but still a biological man. So that's the issue: is that people, if a kid thinks that they can literally change their sex by taking some sort of surgery or like a hormonal drug, and they're under 18, I think that is
Kids
very,
don't
very
know what
dangerous.
the hell they want, right? Like kids change all the time. I didn't know what I wanted when I was 11. I didn't know what I wanted when I was 13. I knew I like girls, right? But definitely the idea that someone can make it, you can't buy cigarettes yet. but you can choose to have a sex change. You could choose to be, sex change is the wrong word. It's chemically castrated, right?
It's mutilating
That is
the body.
insane. It is absolutely insane. It's irreversible. And now you have no sex. You're never going to have an orgasm. You're never going to have a baby, right? Whether you're male or female, you are now sterile. That's a crime. So you can't buy cigarettes. You can't buy a beer, but you can sterilize yourself. You can choose. Like, that's insane.
I think they made it illegal in the UK a while ago after the Tavistock debacle when it came out that it wasn't helping young people like they thought it was. Like, suicide rates were not going down. I mean, I don't know all the stats on this, but I believe that it was like in Europe, they were kind of early on saying, okay, no more of this. And I'm surprised it took this long. I'm not really, because we needed a new commander-in-chief to kind of realign the conversation. Biden was kind of checked out on this thing. So, and it felt like he had deferred to the medical industry, who was profiting hand over fist on these surgeries. So, I mean, I'm not shocked that this happened, but it's good.
For me, I think, and I've been saying this for a while now, I think a lot of the people who are pushing this, and I'm talking about parents, where their kid says some innocuous thing, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, no, Timmy's a girl, you know. I think they just want to be able to say, hey, listen, I'm the parent of a transgender child.
Yeah.
And now it's like it's their designer child, you know.
Yeah.
This is Timmy, but we're gonna rename her Tina, and she is really a female that was just born in the wrong body. And now you get to walk around and have this child, and now because you're the parent of one, it puts you in that classification of, oh yes, and this applies to me as well because I'm their parent.
Plus
it's the same thing if you remember the mid to late 90s when everybody wanted their kid to be gay. Yeah. Because now you have this designer child that now, you know, I'm part of the LGBTQ community as well because I'm their parent. It goes back to socialism where you're either the oppressed or the oppressor.
Yep.
And you can't be the oppressor. So now you're going to do everything to see yourself and view yourself and actively become a part of the oppressed.
I saw a tweet the other day, and I wish that I saved it, but essentially the comment was something like, this young man, he was a white kid that was getting told that he's an oppressor and he's bad and because he's a male and he's white, et cetera, et cetera. And he was told all these things, and 2 years later, he's a girl. If you're told that you are the epitome of evil just by the nature of your skin color and your sex, then you're told, but there's a way out of it. By becoming a member of the LGBTQ community, some kind of queer, trans, gay, whatever. If you adopt that mantle, then you're no longer an oppressor. You're one of the oppressed.
There's also the
What is
term-
that going to do? That's going to make a ton of weak young men say, I want to be in that group. And it's going to make another group, another portion of those young men that are defiant say, well, F you. Then I'm going to go ahead and find the most offensive, and that's why we have a problem with Nazis and National Socialists and stuff, and dudes with the real extreme right, because they're like, well, you're calling me all these things anyways. Those guys don't call me these things. They don't hate me for who I am. So why shouldn't I?
And in addition to kids being pressured into feeling like they need to change their sex, which I wouldn't be surprised if that's happening, there's the term ally, which I've heard over the last, 8 years, 9 years. I didn't really hear that before 2010. And that's someone that's just like, okay, fine, I'm on their side. They've picked a side. And like, what are you allying with exactly in that instance?
I'm an ally of humanity. You know, just in general, people. It doesn't have to be LGBTQ or whatever. I think to sympathize with a specific cause like that is weird, right?
Well, I've always said this whole thing with the classrooms now, because now you have teachers who they're hell bent on, I'm going to teach your children to call me Zay Zum or whatever it is. I'm going to, or I'm going to show up in class dressed like this. And kids who are naturally curious are going to ask, hey, who are you? Why are you dressed like this? Oh, well, now it's my chance to educate you. I've always said, when did parents lose the right to say, I'm not comfortable with this?
Yeah.
I don't want you talking to my child about this. If you can't show up in class and looking professional, then I don't want you there. If I show up to a classroom wearing a huge cross, I'm told to take it off because I don't want you spreading your religion in class. Kids are going to start asking about that. I'm uncomfortable with that. But I can show up with a rainbow shirt with the new LGBTQIA plus LMNOP flag and with green hair with horns growing out my head, and kids go, hey, look at you, what are you? Oh, now it's my chance. That's smiled upon. When did parents lose the right to say, you know what? No, that's not cool. I don't want that.
Well, you're hateful if you do that now.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that the right to do that was lost when the argument over teaching reproductive stuff in schools was, when the schools were empowered to teach the reproduction of I forget what it is, sex ed. There you go. When the schools were like, okay, we're going to teach sex ed, and parents were like, well, we're uncomfortable with our kids learning at this age, and the parents lost the ability to say, don't teach that to my kid at this time. I want to decide when my kids learn this stuff. Once that was lost, then it was all downhill after.
Is there no, parents don't have to sign off on that anymore?
No,
it's just
anymore.
automatically?
Yeah.
Because when I was in school,
I remember when I was in school, they sent the curriculum home. They said, this is exactly what we're going to be talking about. This is the guidelines, and sign off on it.
Yeah, but remember when COVID happened, there were a ton of parents that learned that their kids were being taught things that they had no idea. That's a big part of why this kind of stuff got out, like the LGBT training or schooling and stuff. Parents didn't know that their kids were learning this stuff. And then when COVID happened and you had the remote learning, parents looked in on their classes and they were like, what in God's name is going on at that school? And people started to make a stink. And that was when then the Biden administration, when the Biden administration got in, they started calling parents, problems, calling the FBI to monitor the parents because they were saying we have a problem with our children learning these things. The federal government really had taken the position that children were the responsibility of the federal government and parents were only to look after them when they weren't in school.
I remember a story where this mother, she had her kid doing schoolwork at the kitchen table, right? She was doing the schoolwork, and she was in the kitchen doing her thing, and she's listening in the background, and then she hears about this weird ideology that's going on. And I remember the story. I don't know what they were talking about specifically, but it was like this whole where you are can be who you want to be, transgender, critical, what's it called? Critical sex theory? What's it again?
There's critical gender theory, critical race theory, there's critical theory in general, and then you apply
but
it
they
to
were talking
different
critical gender theory to this young person, and it just blew her mind. She's like, where the F did this come from? She had no idea what was going on. For example of Phil, because that stuck out in my brain. It still sticks in my brain. She's just chilling there. You're chilling in your house, and you're having a good time, and your kids go to school. Next thing you know, they're getting taught this weird stuff, and you're like, wait a second, hold on, where did that come from? That's weird, crazy.
Well, this also goes along with all of a sudden parents started figuring out that in their children's library, there are books on that graphically describe how they give oral sex and everything. And the parents are like, wait a minute, wait a minute.
Hold up.
You've got pictures here, you've got descriptions. What's going on here? And then you have to go, oh, well, you just want to censor these books. No, I don't. I don't want a book like this in my child's classroom. And that's why I keep asking, when did parents lose the ability to say, I'm not cool with this. I'm not comfortable with this. I don't have to go along with it. And then the left tries to figure out why the right is now considering homeschooling or moving so much into homeschooling. It's because you guys took the educational curriculum and went nuts with it.
Yep.
I think we need vouchers.
Oh,
You know what
absolutely.
I mean? We need
Vouchers?
choice. We need school choice, right? Yeah, because private school solves a lot of these problems. You choose the school that has the values that you like, but not everyone can afford to forego the taxes that they paid for public education and pony up extra money for private school. Why don't we have school vouchers? Because we don't want parents to be able to choose? I mean, it seems like it, right?
You just gave yourself your own answer.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that actually kind of goes without saying. The federal government, you can listen to the way the Democrats talk, and they say it openly. They may not intend to say it openly, but they do. The way they talk about our children and the things that our children, and I think Hillary Clinton said something along the lines of, they're all of our children. They're not just your children. And they take the idea that the children of America are the actual future of America, and they say, well, because of that, they're too valuable for parents to raise. We have to raise them the right way. And really what they end up doing is destroying a significant amount of them. If you've got, I don't know how many kids graduate from college per year, but I think it's on Google that for me. But if you get, just say 5% of the kids that graduate from from college every year, and they are activists, right? And they're actually activists for the Democrat cause.
4.16 million students.
4.16 million.
From post-secondary and postgraduate programs.
So if you get just 5% of that as activists every year, every couple of years, every few years, you get 1 million new activists in the country. And if they're committed...
And they are too.
And they are, yeah, absolutely. If they're committed to things like this, then you're going to have a significant population looking to change the makeup of the country, the political makeup of the country.
I feel like there was an essence of critical censorship theory that seeped in that we sort of maybe glazed over because, okay, in 2010 and 11 and 12, all of a sudden social media started to censor people. And there's this backlash of like censorship bad, generally across the board. It's not. First of all, censorship itself is neutral. If it's used improperly, it's horrible. If it's used properly, it can protect people from seeing the most egregious, horrific things, especially young children being exposed to porn or violence or things that you need to really protect young kids from. So the argument is, how dare you censor this book? Censorship is bad. Dude, just because it looks like a cartoon, just because it's in a book with a little little cartoon parrot, doesn't mean it's okay to show people, and you do need censorship. So there's got to be a balance on the censorship. It's just a general social conversation of what do we censor? How do we censor it? And but it's important to remember that censorship itself is not the problem.
I think where we censor is really important, right? Like censoring at a school is a lot different, I think, than censoring on the internet, right? I think censoring social media, especially from a top down, from a government perspective, deciding what's true and not true. I think when you're censoring adults like that, I mean, I can't think of a reason why that's good. That seems just objectively bad to me. But I hear you with like, keeping horrible graphic violence, porn, whatever, certain things out of the eyes of children and out of elementary schools and whatever. That's where I'll bend a little bit on my point of view.
Because like the book you were mentioning earlier about how it was showing young kid to do like oral sex or whatever it is, or it just showed a young person doing that. I'm on the team of censor that from school, but if they want to sell it at Barnum, bookstores, let them sell it at the bookstore.
So maybe this is semantics, but I think that when it comes to what goes into a library or what goes into a school, that's just curation. Right, like you curate the information that goes into a school, that goes into a library, and that's not the same thing as censorship, at least as far as I'm concerned. If you can buy something on Amazon, but say, like when they say, Florida's banning books and censoring books, Florida did no such thing. Florida curated what was actually available in the schools, right? They didn't say that Amazon couldn't sell this book. They didn't say that if you're caught with this book, you'll go to jail. They said these books aren't going into schools. And there's nothing wrong with the state curating what is and is not appropriate, or what does not go into schools based on what they find is and is not appropriate for schools. That's not censorship. That's not book banning.
Doesn't that sort of go along the same lines as soon as the next president comes in, they just sign the pen and erase all the executive orders, right? I feel like it could be equally bad if a state had very different view than you, and they decided to start censoring the books that you agree with and allow in the bad books. So that's where I think even curation at a school level gets difficult, because who gets to curate it? Do you get to curate it, or do I get to curate it?
In my opinion, it should be something that the parents have a say in. Like the parents of the district, and that kind of stuff happens.
Keep it local.
Yeah, that kind 100%. Of stuff happens when parents actually go to parent-teacher meetings, right? When parents people go to the PTA, the Parent-Teacher Association. Yeah. You need to go to your PTA meetings. If you have kids, go to your PTA meetings. Know what's going on in those schools.
You might be right that Oh, what were you saying, Zeke?
No, this is why I'm a huge proponent for. I think there should be cameras in classrooms.
100%.
I think there should be if your kid is going into a certain classroom and you have no idea what the inside of that classroom looks like, you failed as a parent. Like just me personally, my wife and I, we've been inside Outdoors classroom plenty of times. We know her teacher. We know her teacher's views. We know what her teacher is teaching. Fine, well, and good. I'm the type to say, let's take it a step further. However you want to protect the students, do so. But there should be something focused on the teacher so that we know exactly what that teacher is teaching. So at any point, I can pop in, I can replay it, I can look at it and see that the teacher is teaching the curriculum. I can take a look around the classroom, make sure there are no crazy flags up. I can take a look around the classroom, make sure there's not kitty litter on the side, so that, for the kid who thinks that they're a cat. I think there should be all of it there. And that's also why I say who you vote for is very important, because you don't want this person now saying, you know what? No, I don't want the Bible in there, and no, you can't wear a shirt with scripture on it. But you know what? If you want to wear a shirt that's got a graphic picture of oral sex on it, go for it. Have at it. You can do whatever you want. Oh, you know what? Little Timmy over there thinks he's a cat, and twice a day he's got to go and poop in front of everybody, in front of...
Is that real?
I believe it is. I believe it is.
And why do we have cameras everywhere in the world, in our country, everywhere, everything that's important to us, to society, except for watching our youth and making sure our youth is taken care of?
Because of teachers' unions. The teachers' unions don't want the teachers to be held responsible. That's
unions, that's another huge problem. Just break up all the unions. Every union.
PC unions.
Nothing good to say about you.
You were I think you might be right, Phil, about curation versus censorship. I did a quick search on it, and it may be semantic, but generally they're both forms of moderation, and that the censorship is more about removing something, whereas curation is deciding what gets seen. So it's kind of like the positive versus the negative aspect of moderation.
You can't have every book in every library.
It's like a synopsis for doing school program.
And again, it's like if you can order a book, and so I saw someone in the chat was complaining about someone's book being unavailable on Amazon, and it's like, okay, fair enough. Amazon doesn't want to carry it. That's I would prefer to see books available on Amazon, but does that mean that you can't go to the author's website and buy it? Does it mean that you can't go to the publisher's website and buy it? Is it
Amazon's
unavailable?
still a private company.
Yep.
Is it against the law to print it?
Exactly. Right. So, and again, that's what I think of when it comes to censorship, right? The idea that the government says this book, the information in this book is outlawed, not, hey, this is inappropriate to put in front of children.
What about like the social media example? What about the Twitter files? What about Hunter Biden's laptop, right? That's sort of curation, because you're saying this can't go on a social media platform. You're not saying you're going to go to jail if you say it per se. So that's, but a little gray area.
I think that because of the goal that was politically motivated, I think that falls under, even if it's not technically censorship, I think that it's illegal. It should be illegal for the government to do so. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, if you look at what Mark Zuckerberg was saying and what the Twitter files were saying, it was basically saying that the Biden administration was saying, if you publish that, we're going to come down on you. So expect your taxes to go up, expect to be investigated, expect to be called and harassed and everything else like that. To me, that's censorship. To me, that's the government getting involved in private businesses saying, what you're not going to do is publish this about us for our own personal gain. And I think that's exactly what the Second Amendment was against, the government going in and saying, we're going to decide what to put out there to the public.
First Amendment.
So if you... It's the First Amendment. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
You still need some government censorship, like R-rated, X-rated.
No,
movies.
and that's fine, because that I can understand. But if the president's son did something, and the government now, specifically that president's administration, comes in and tells a private business, tells you personally, you know what? If you publish that, there's going to be retribution against you. That is a direct violation of the First Amendment.
I think it was Nazi-level censorship. I think
absolutely.
That was egregious 21st century.
Joseph Goebbels is looking at that from his grave and going, what the? I could have done that.
Can we stop comparing everything to Nazis?
It was just a horrific national social, like taking control of the private sector, trying to nationalize the power of the private industry. It was disgusting what they did, what the government did with censorship in that era. It was horrific.
Why didn't the Nazis have a grasp on everything we do when there have been like 70 million killed by communists in China and stuff? Everything's compared to the Nazis.
Yeah, and the communists are just as good as
I know, that's what I'm
banning
saying, but
books and banning
is it
stuff.
because he's a white guy?
Well,
I
the
don't know what's
Nazis
going on.
it was publicized. What they did was very public. They were very like blatant about it, so we know really well what they were doing.
Yeah, the Nazis were very proud of the stuff that they were doing. Back in, I mean, at the time, that type of top-down control, that was all the rage, like all over the world. They're like, you know, FDR. There were things written by Adolf Hitler that were praising FDR and the things that FDR had done. Yeah, like because most of the governments of the world kind of were of the opinion, they're like, hey, we've reached the point where technology is going to usher in the new age, and we're going to be able to control everything, and so government knows best. We're the smart people, and we should be in charge of this and that, and et cetera, et cetera. A lot of people looked at the Soviet Union and said, that's the future. That kind of system is the future. There were, you know, Durante was writing at the New York Times in praise of the Soviet Union, and he was lying through his teeth, but he was like, this is the future. I've been to the future, and it works. I've been there. I've seen it. And the idea of socialism and the government providing for all and ultimate abundance and stuff, that was something that was all the rage in the first half of the 20th century. And then it turns out that none of it worked, and it just killed millions and millions and millions of
Way
people.
more than that guy.
So, Serge, you ready to go to Super Chats, homie?
Serge with the top knot tonight. I don't know if there's a camera on that.
Top
guy.
knot.
He's very aggressive
The way
today.
you got
too.
your hair pinned up there.
That reminds me of a character from the Dragonlance novels. Anybody read those when they were a kid?
Yeah, so a bit of it.
Yeah.
Which character is it? Ricelin?
No,
wizard?
Rasslin didn't have the top knot. He was the little one, the elf dude that had the top knot. I forget his name. The small
With the dual wielded the weapon? No.
He was I forget what he was. He was it was the one that had like the wanderlust that he couldn't stay in one place. I forget his name. Anyways, we're gonna go to Super Chats. I'll stop running my face about Dragonlance and D&D stuff.
No, sorry.
So yeah, I mean, look. I played
D&D. I started doing it, guys. FYI, throwing out there. I've been failing it last couple of months, but I did it for a couple of months there. It's fantastic. I was so surprised at how these nerds and geeks have fun. It's a good time. D&D is.
It is very fun.
I agree.
Polly Puree says first, yes, you were.
Good job, Polly.
Good job.
Shout out, Paul.
Let's see. Neglectful Sausage says Destiny's live stream yesterday. He said Elon is a neo-Nazi, and neo-Nazis can appreciate other cultures and love them, and aren't necessarily white supremacists. This counters 50 years of articles on them. He is lying on purpose. He's lying and saying those things because he's trying to misdirect from the fact that he recorded a woman having sex with him without her knowledge and then gave it to his homies.
Allegedly? Is that confirmed?
Allegedly.
Legal dispute about it?
Well, it's not really in dispute. There's a pending court case and there are charges. That's felonious activity there, Stephen.
I don't think.
What are you doing, homie?
I don't think Elon's in any way like National Socialist or Nazi. Like the way he liberated Twitter from the government's control is like nothing that the Nazis would have went in the other direction. They would have capitulated.
The left has been calling Donald Trump a neo-Nazi all day for doing things that shrink the size of government, which is completely antithetical to what the National Socialists did. Like maybe like people love to get into arguments about whether the Nazis were actually socialists or whether they weren't or whatever. Most of the Nazis were socialists before they became National Socialists. They saw that international and global socialism, communism wasn't going to work. And they're like, well, we want to go ahead and do the socialist stuff, but do it just for the German people, just for the white people that are in the Germans, the Aryan race. So they were socialist. They were absolutely top-down socialists. You couldn't do what you wanted. You didn't have individual rights. All the stuff you were doing was for the fatherland and stuff. They were socialists, but they weren't international socialists. So, but they still wanted the big government that was providing all kinds of things for the right people. Just they didn't want to provide things for everybody. So.
It's such a watered-down term because on X, I've been called a white supremacist and Nazi before.
The blackface of white supremacy.
And I'll tell them, listen, I think I'm going to fail the entrance exam if I go
you
there.
totally would.
Like the second they see me come in, they better turn around. No.
If you put blue contacts in, you might be able to pass.
I don't know. I think you can see me coming. Why is he here? No, tell him he can't. So, I mean, it's such a watered down term that it's what the left has done to themselves, and now everyone's won.
It really has.
They water everything down.
Yeah.
They go from
but stupid words.
They go from zero to Nazi though. Look at what they did to Anna Kasparian. Like she's like, don't call me a birthing person, and they're like, you're a Nazi.
I mean, to be fair, I went straight to communist with Kamala. So.
Her dad's a Marxist. Her dad is a Marxist, and the things like
he owned slaves. Grandfather did. Well,
really?
Yeah.
And statements like we can see what the future is unburdened by what has been or whatever. Those are like communist phrases and stuff. So, I mean, maybe she's not a full blown communist, but she talking about price controls, all of these ideas that have been tried by socialist countries all throughout history that never work.
Very directionally communist.
I might be biased, but I agree with you. Maybe a little biased.
So.
I don't know.
But yeah. Destiny's a piece of garbage. Anyways,
I'm surprised there's like an audience that watches both shows. Destiny's show and this show.
He's been on the show.
Well, there are
times
hate
in the
watchers.
past.
There are hate watchers in every show. I have plenty of followers that don't like me at all.
Yeah, I just don't relate with the hate watching.
I've got guys who can't stand me. Like I'm like their most hated Twitter account. And when I click on their accounts, following you, and I'm like, oh, look at that.
John Costanzo says, Phil, it was Tasselhoff Burfoot. He was a Kender similar to a halfling hobbit. Thank you very much. Yes, it was Tasselhoff. He was absolutely a lot of fun. And if you're in D&D and you haven't read the Dragonlance novels,
I might have to though.
Start with Dragons of Autumn Twilight. That's the first one. They're really, really cool books. So do that and then read the.
No.
What are you doing down there? Serge is like, no, don't do that nerd crap. Anyways, all right, what do we got here? Some super chats. Okay.
Isn't that Drizzt?
Hey, also shout out Tacti Platty and Bertman.
What's up, Tacti Platty?
Yeah.
Hal Gailey says, great job taking up the mantle, Phil. Second day in a row, no notification from YouTube IRL. I want the 2 weeks till Christmas on a poster. Oh, really? The art on a poster.
That's a great idea.
I mean, look, man, you'll have to talk to Tim about that, but I will put the bug in his ear and see what he says.
That is a really good idea.
If-
All of these skateboards should be on posters.
That's actually not a bad idea.
Yeah. Artwork. People love artwork.
Yeah. There you go. Or maybe the 2 weeks till
You're
Christmas.
listening, Tim.
Maybe the 2 weeks till Christmas artwork on a skateboard.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
it's
okay.
awesome.
Yeah. Same thing. Artwork. Love it.
All right. Let's see here. Big 7588 says the condoms were about money laundering. Isn't it always about money laundering down there? Just get the money in. I mean, I don't know if they were stuffing money in the condoms, but,
Like I said, who owns a condom business?
Yeah, right. Who owns the condom business? Dot Focus says, I'm confused. You guys are speaking as if the 50 mil was truly for condoms. It was obviously a lie for something else. I don't disagree. I just don't have a good theory as to like what it actually was, But again, they do seem to be quite crafty and making condom bombs seems like something that like they were, interested in doing. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that they were there? Do you have any theories as to what if it was 50 million in condoms, or is that just a cover, or what?
I mean, 400 condoms per adult male at the 25-cent a condom price, that doesn't seem realistic. I guess it probably is for something else. I mean, it is money laundering, right? What it was, I have no theory on that.
I mean, senior Biden official dismissed it as calling it a feverish dream, the whole story. This is from the Times of Israel. Yeah, this is from earlier today.
A feverish dream that was announced during the White House press conference?
This whole thing is a feverish dream, that it's not real, apparently. I'm still looking into it. I want to find out where they paid, what company got the money for the condoms.
I mean, listen, I know some guys who ran up their body count numbers in college, but 400, listen, that's impressive. But that's like actually a great point. It really could be just a money laundering.
Okay, so they said it's possible that 50 million is put aside for sexual health or something of that nature, which would include gynecology, many other services, but definitely not condoms alone. This is the statement from, I think this is Andrew Miller, the Assistant Secretary for Israeli-Palestinian Affairs under former President Joe Biden.
Remember, the COVID came from a pangolin or from bat soup, and
1,000 miles
that was
away.
the story that the Biden administration wanted us to believe.
I loved the one theory that they were willing to rule out was the lab theory, right? That was the only thing that they say it wasn't.
Definitely wasn't the Wuhan lab for infectious disease.
We can have a 5-hour
Until it was.
conversation on how crazy it is.
Until it was.
How bad it is and how crazy and lied they are, lied to everyone about everything. It's a whole day's worth of talk.
Stan Goodman says, panel, do you think it's a detriment or a strength that the right doesn't march in lockstep like the left usually does? For instance, the H-1B debate and Israel-Gaza.
Well, I mean, I think it's a sign that we're critical and free thinkers. I think it means that we are intelligent. I think it's bad strategy from a us versus them perspective, obviously, right? Like if we're not united and they are, it's going to be easy for them to have numbers on us over and over again.
I think of it as a form of soft power. It's not overt, but it's the way forward. It's the way to create sustainable societies. It can be destroyed, which it's vulnerable, but it's the way forward.
And it's very healthy. We can't all be freaking robots. We can't have the right-wing woke mind virus. We have to be our individuals and have our own thoughts. So it's very healthy for our side, I believe.
I mean, listen, for certain topics, do I wish we were a little bit more lockstep and let's all get together and make sure this happens? Sure. But I don't know anyone where I agree with them 100% all the time. So it's, like I say, I mean, like you said, I think it shows that we're more critical thinkers, we're more independent thinkers, we're not afraid to call each other out or our own stuff. And I prefer that than being in a party where, hey, listen, you're going to say this and you're going to say that and you're going to say this and you're going to say that. Okay, everybody break. I'd rather have that.
I think overall it's a benefit to the right because they will find I feel like it is more likely that we will find the right idea.
Fine-tune it?
Be able to fine-tune the ideas. And the only time that I would say that it's actually a negative is when it comes to Congress, because the margins are very thin. And so I do think that I would like to see Congress fall in line behind whatever
would you do it?
Yeah.
Would I what?
Would you fall in line on an issue that you felt strongly about?
Man, I ain't going to Congress.
But if you were, right? So I would not want to ask anyone who I vote to represent me. I would not want anyone that spineless in office, to be honest. I wish that the left and the right all voted independently based on what they actually believe. That's the country I want to live in. I like, you will not tell me that because I'm a member of the Republican Party that I need to feel a certain way on a certain issue. I just won't do it.
I think that it depends on the context that you're in. So right now, the margin, the actual the lead that the Republicans have is very narrow and it doesn't take very many Republicans dissenting to sideline a bill. And considering the fact that, again, the president won the popular vote. He won the Electoral College. We have both the Senate and the House, as well as the Supreme Court. And if you look at the direction the country went in, the whole country shifted right. There was not one county that flipped to the left. Not one. Kamala Harris picked up 0 counties. So because of the context, I do think that it's like, hey, you should probably fall in line. Now, if things were different, if the margins were bigger, or if there was not a clear shift from the Republican, from the country to say we want to see more right-leaning policies, we're sick of the things the Democrats have been doing. If that were not the case, then I would think that your argument would be compelling. But I think because of the context that we're in, I would like to see Republicans kind of fall in line and say, look, even if I'm not in love with this, I think that Donald Trump has a mandate. The American people have made it clear that they want to move away from the policies of the left, and we need to get policies that are going to make the voting public happy. We need to make those happen. So
this is also why I think we should have term limits, because it would get rid of a lot of the selfish interests, and then B, you have to also understand when you are elected to this position, it's no longer about you. and what you think. You have to go back to your constituents and be able to say, hey, listen, I didn't like this. I'm not in love with this. Matter of fact, I might hate it. But you all put me in a position to vote on this. Yeah. And like you said, Phil, this is the direction the country is going in. These are the mandates that are in. And you know what? If it's for the common good and it's for the betterment of the country, but however I feel in it, we're going to go forward.
That's subjective, though, if it's for the betterment of the country, right? Issue by issue.
Well, you're a representative of your people who voted for you.
And for one more thing, remember, gone are the days that there are multiple bills that get passed. We're going to get 2 bills. We're going to get an omnibus bill, and we're probably going to get an immigration bill. And those are the only bills. And everyone's going to stuff all kinds of pork in them. So if the Republicans want to get these bills passed, they're going to have to vote yes for a bill that has a boatload of stuff that they don't want.
Can we get the next executive order to be no more omnibus bills, no more, like, please?
Only if we can, if we can get magic to, everyone gets to have a magic pony. Like, we live in the real world, and the situation is we don't have the votes to be able to do those kind of things. So if you want to get anything passed, like if you want to get changes to the government passed, the bill that's going to come up is going to have garbage in it, and it's going to have more garbage than anyone's comfortable with, and it's going to have enough garbage where your opponent, when it comes time for you to go back home and try to raise money and run, your opponent's going to say, look at what he passed. He passed this. He voted yes on this. He voted yes on this, because it was in an omnibus bill. But the reason that you're going to vote yes on that is because it's going to have all the stuff you want. And if you want to get a bill that has all the stuff you want to pass, that means the Democrats are going to say, I see an opportunity to stuff my garbage in here too. So because of the fact that it's omnibus bills, and this is not an endorsement, the chat's probably going to lose their mind. I'm not saying that I like this. I'm talking about the reality of the way that the sausage is made in D.C. Mm-hmm. If you want to get things like border security passed, if you want to get things like the wall funded, if you want to get these things, if you want to make sure that we have the ability to get everybody that's here illegally out and make sure they have the funding to be able to do that and possibly prevent those things from becoming a problem next year, then you're going to pass a bill that has garbage in it. You're going to have to take the bitter medicine along with the stuff that you want, and there's no way around it.
I want a magic pony.
Well, look
it's fine to want that, but I'm telling you the conditions that we live in.
Look at what happened during the debate. What was Kamala Harris's main thing she used against Trump? Oh, he didn't want the border bill. He called his friends and told them not to vote for this bill. She didn't bring up the fact that there was so much pork stuffed in the same bill that the thing could have gone on a pizza and had toppings on it. No, she talked about he didn't want the border security bill. And when the left all talked about it, they made it seem as if the Republicans in Congress, they didn't want border security. They don't want more funding for
you're
police.
You're making my argument.
No, listen, I agree with you. I agree with you in fundamentally, where I think every bill should be 1 page, a paragraph, maybe 2 at most, but we should be able to read the bill and know what's on it.
If my 6-year-old can't read it, it shouldn't be a bill. In fact, I think all laws should be
Listen,
Yeah.
I shoulda, coulda, woulda. I love all the things you're saying. I agree with it, but we live in a...
Executive order, baby.
We live in...
We couldn't deport people 2 weeks ago. Now we can.
Listen, you can make the executive order, but it has to be a law that's going to be able to stand. So we got to keep going, though. We got more super chats. Just Because I'm Free says, day 2 of telling everyone to call your reps and senators. We need Cash, Tulsi, and RFK Jr. approved. Also, HB 38 is a national constitutional carry law. Let's make 2025 our year and hold our representatives' feet to the fire and get past what we can. I love it. I love it. I love it. I think it's going to die, but call your representatives and get, because of all the stuff that I just went through, like there's not going to be single bills. But if you can get that stuffed into the omnibus, I'm there with you. That's a possibility. So if we can get that bill stuffed into the omnibus that everybody's going to want to pass, then we could see something happen. But it's not going to pass on its own, and the only reason it's not going to pass on its own is because nobody wants to.
I think that's a root problem with our country. The fact that if you're going to pass this, I'm going to pass this. Then we just end up with a bunch of shit no matter who's in charge.
I couldn't agree with you more, but that it doesn't change the situation that we have. Like, I agree. Like, again, I none of what I said is something that I'm happy about, but I'm just talking about the reality of getting bills passed in DC right now, especially with the very narrow the very narrow majority we have. It's not like if we had 300 Republicans in the House and 65 in the Senate, we could change the whole country. Absolutely. Do it. And believe me, if we can get those people in, I'm here for it. Absolutely. I want it. But we don't have that.
Penny, I love your enthusiasm and your idea, but like was Phil saying, bro, we don't. It beats reality.
We got a bull in the china shop, man. Let them break some stuff. That's what I'm saying.
It's like term limits. It's like term limits. Term limits would solve a ton of problem we have, but these elected officials aren't going to vote to restrict themselves. So it's up to the people.
Yep.
But with that said, in the perfect world, hey, listen, yeah, we'd have term limits. We'd have single item bills that came out, and we'd be able to say, hey, listen, I like that. I don't like that. I like that. I don't like that. And you know what? My representatives are going to vote the way I want them to do. But we don't live in the perfect world. We got to live in the real world, and this is what it is.
Penny, there's a method to get exactly what you want. And it's an Article 5 convention of states. You want to go around Washington, D.C., go ahead and come up with all the votes you need to get an Article 5 convention of states, and we can amend the Constitution. And if D.C. doesn't like it, they can S a D. Because that's just the Article 5 says this is what you're going to do. You need 2/3 of the states to agree. Have the convention, get the amendments you want. You want term limits, you can put that into the Constitution, but you need to have an Article 5, and that's the only way you can circumvent D.C.
Well, like 6 months ago, I avoided politics like the plague. By next year, I'll be flipping California.
There you go. I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Extant Man says, I'm a recently retired 33-year-old federal employee. I asked many times to be allowed to work from home. They asked, how are you going to do that? You're an air traffic controller. Not all feds are useless, Phil. Fair enough. But do the air traffic controllers have to be federally? Does it have to be feds? I mean, could it be private? And I don't know. I'm not the guy that's saying.
They talked about the airport security privatizing that today.
I mean,
private
things are all right.
Please.
And hopefully that gentleman's mental health is fine, because I hear about air controllers. S rate is very high, so I hope he's okay.
Yeah. Mark Connolly says, trades are underappreciated. Yep. I'm a plant operations manager at a hospital system in rural South Georgia. We start maintenance technicians out at $25 an hour in very rural areas. Very good money for our area. That's true, and I got love for the trades, and I think that millennials and Gen Z have been done a significant disservice by not being told, hey, look, this is a great way for you to earn a living.
They are now.
Thankfully.
I would love to preach that message more, because I've been doing it for the last 15 years, and it's a beautiful trait. It's good money. It's good people. You learn things. I had a water leak over the weekend, and I was able to do that stuff myself. So it's great. It's useful. It's knowledge. I'm the family electrician. I'm the family construction guy. Anything they need to hit me up, and they give me like pizza and beer. So I love it.
I think it's the straightest path to starting your own business too.
Yes,
right? If you get a college degree, starting a business is hard. But if you start by doing trades, and then you just hire someone to help you, hire another guy, such a straight path.
Yep. Cloth Swiss says, as a Gen X, I'm disgusted by the weakness of the youth of this nation. Job roles sit empty because the youth won't step up. Their failure leads to me making more money. Great for you. But I will say that the idea that it's hard to get people to do the job, that's a real thing. That's something that Tim has talked about a bunch. Getting people to actually do work and stuff like that's tough. I've had a bunch of problems up in New Hampshire trying to get people to come and do projects that I have at my house, and
that is fair.
And it's real. When you want someone that's skilled, you don't want someone that's just going to be yeah, I can come and do it. I personally want someone that's bonded and insured, because I want to make sure that I know that the work is going to be done properly, and so it's not super easy to find people that are available and that are willing to go out of the way to come to a place like my place in New Hampshire that's in the woods.
That's so whack. How do people not want to make money? You have a job, you have the skills, you can do it, but how do they not want to make money? I've come across this too much.
All the guys that I talk to, they're like, well, I'm tied up, so blah, blah, blah. I'll get out there maybe, if you want to start the project next year is the kind of stuff that I get.
It sounds like there's a lot of competition then, that the really good people get booked out, and that there's a lot of mediocre people that are available. So it's an opportunity for you to become really good at something like that.
I was doing excellent on Craigslist when I worked for the state of Pennsylvania as a welfare office, working from home and COVID, which I can represent. But I was making decent cash on the side doing electrical work, and people hit me up left and right. So it's like you just got to do it, and you just got to know how to do it, and be licensed, of course, as well.
Justice Gypsy says, please send positive vibes and prayers in remembrance of my dog, Mishka. We just had to put him down to stop his suffering Sunday. I'm sorry to hear. I am the biggest dog person that you're ever going to meet. Like, I've never met a dog I don't like. I'm a huge dog fan, and it's a terrible thing when it's time for them to move on. It's they're human beings owe dogs, right? Like, we created dogs. They were wolves, and then we created dogs by having them, breeding them to be certain ways. So human beings have a debt to dogs, and so we have to take care of them. And to be honest with you, dogs bring so much joy to so many people. Like, it's rough when they go. So,
Just a side story. My wife and I adopted a dog about 4 years ago that had been abused. And she didn't trust me at first because I guess I looked like the person who was abusing her. And it took me a while just for her to be comfortable with me. And now she's very comfortable with me. She lays on me. And it's one of the greatest feelings in the world.
Yeah, it is. It is. So my condolences from all of us here. So Wisco Luffy says, Grandma passed last Monday. Lifelong Dem voted Trump, thanking her for planting the tree she wouldn't see the shade of. Ah, man.
Grandma.
R.I.P. Grandma.
Hey, can you find a decent one that's not going to make us
Yeah, that's
to end on here, Serge? Rebel Without a Cause. I heard that ATR used to open for Condom Bombs.
Hey.
I swear to God, that like, I wouldn't be surprised if that was a punk band's name. That sounds like a great punk band's name.
Condom bombs?
Condom Bombs.
Hell yeah.
Someone trademark that. That's gonna be great.
I'm not really a fan of punk rock, but Condom Bombs is definitely a good punk band name. Dork Tannen says, this has nothing to do with anything, but croissant is the best bread for roast beef sandwiches, and I will fight over it. Look, man, you are not going to catch me dissing croissants. They are delicious. They are absolutely delicious. So I think now is the time that you should smash the like button, share the show with your friends, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. So thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it. You guys going to go ahead and tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm Penny2X on X is where you can find me. I also have a YouTube channel, Penny2X. Love to see you guys there.
Yeah, you can find me over on X. That's my main trash talking spot. Zeek Arkham, ZeekArkham. I'm also on Instagram, same handle. And if you want to engage in some foolywang, you want to trash talk some people, you want to get some people pissed off, or you just want to think, sometimes I rhyme slow, sometimes I rhyme quick, go for it.
Oh, what's up, guys? Raymond G. Stanley Jr. here, your friendly friend. I'm so close to 100K followers on X, nearly 85,000, so we're getting there. Follow me on X, Raymond G. Stanley Jr.
I'm very fortunate to be a part of these conversations. You gotta. Sometimes I'll watch this show when I'm not on and just want to respond. So thank you guys for coming and this incredibly.
I send super chats. Like there have been times where I'll be driving and I'll text Serge, be like, "Yo, tell him this or whatever."
I actually spend money. You send text.
I'll text Serge. Yeah,
That's the extra super chat.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
Oh, what were you gonna?
No, I was going to say, I want to shout out Chris and Sarah. They just had a baby. They work here.
Yes.
They're beautiful people, and they just had a newborn child. Beautiful little baby, so I just want to shout them out.
Nice work, guys. Well, I'm at Ian Crossland. Follow me, and I'll see you later at Ian Crossland. That's where you get me.
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. I'm Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. It's a big week for us. We are about to release our 10th record. Comes out Friday. It's called Anti-Fragile. Go to Spotify and pre-save right now if you want to check out some of the songs. You can listen to Forever Cold, Let You Go, No Tomorrow, and Divine. They're available on YouTube, Amazon Music, Apple Music, Spotify, Pandora, and Deezer. The Left Lane is for Crime, and we will see you tomorrow.